Tonight, 2 men dead with gunshot wounds in Melbourne's west. 3 cars flee the scene. The latest live on the hunt for the killers.
A Melbourne man among 2 more Australians confirmed dead in Turkey. We are live to the disaster zone.
A parent's nightmare. 10-year-old mate struck by a car on the way to the park.
Takedown order. Another suspicious object shot down by a US fighter jet. New details.
A Surf Coast water warning as a potentially harmful red algae emerges.
And from big names to big bucks, counting down to the Super Bowl, America's greatest show.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor and Rebecca Madden.
Good evening. 2 young men and a pet dog have been killed in the driveway of a western suburbs home.
Police are hunting the killers, Mike, as we go to air. One of the men was just days from his first overseas holiday with family, but was gunned down during a drive-by confrontation.
The family of one of the victims returned this morning. A father contemplates the loss of his eldest child. Atem was 29, shot dead alongside a friend. A third man survived, but he's injured and in hospital.
Tonight I lose Atem, and it's not easy to lose somebody.
10 minutes before the violence, 3 cars do a U-turn outside the victim's Wyndham Vale home. Police don't know how many people were in the cars, but believe they are responsible.
I don't sleep much and I heard a loud bang, and then a little bit later heard a car speeding off.
The victims were shot near this white Camry, its back window blown out.
At home, minding their own business when this tragic event occurred.
The street woken around 2:30 in the morning.
The family's barking dog was one of the first signs of trouble. It woke Atem's mother and brothers, but the pet was also targeted, shot dead in the driveway.
I heard a loud bang and then a few more.
Atem was about to get his first passport and travel to South Sudan with his mother. The other victims are yet to be publicly identified.
Is there a possible gang link?
We've got nothing to suggest there is, but we will keep an open mind. I don't think this is random.
But it was unexpected, leaving 2 families grieving.
Whoever pulled the trigger last night still hasn't been caught, but police are keen to point out they do not think there is further risk to neighbours in the area. That's because the victims apparently knew their attackers. However, detectives would like to get a hold of security or dash camera vision from last night that'll help identify those 3 cars that pulled up outside the house. Anybody with information can report it anonymously to Crime Stoppers. Beck?
Blake Johnson, thank you. 3 Australians have now been confirmed killed in Turkey's earthquake disaster. The Department of Foreign Affairs says an Australian woman has died along with a much-loved Melbourne grandfather.
Greenvale grandfather Suat Bayram, a dedicated family man and marathon runner, now the latest Australian victim of Turkey's earthquake tragedy. Mr Bayram was believed to be staying in the town of Kirakan in southern Turkey's Hatay province, but family hadn't heard from him for 5 days. At home, social media posts pleading for community help to find him. Today confirmed the worst. His daughter Ebru writing, "We lost our beloved father and grandfather. Our pain is too immense. We are devastated."
The government's hearts, and I'm sure every single Australian's heart, goes to that family and the family of the other Australian killed, and indeed to everybody impacted by this earthquake.
Mr Bayram is one of 3 Australians confirmed dead in the disaster zone, along with Sydney grandfather Chan Pahali and a woman who is yet to be identified. The Department of Foreign Affairs is assisting 80 Australian families who survived the quake but remain in the area. As news of the deaths made its way to Melbourne, hundreds turned out for a vigil to honour lives lost and pray for those still missing. And as night fell, landmarks illuminated in white, a sign of unwavering support for a region brought to its knees. Jodie Lee, 7 News.
The first Australian search and rescue crews are expected to reach southern Turkey in the coming hours.
Sarah Greenhalgh is in Adana in southern Turkey. Sarah, they'll play a critical role in rescue efforts.
Beck, Mike, good evening. With 10 devastated provinces right across this region, there is certainly no shortage of work to be done when Australian boots finally hit the ground here. Of the 72 team members, more than 50 are rescue and recovery specialists, while the others will provide much needed medical assistance. But as the hours and the days tick by here, hope is certainly starting to fade of finding more people alive. Still though, they pray for more incredible survival stories like the ones witnessed here in the past 24 hours.
The chance of survival on day 5 is said to be 6%. So for this many to have hung on for this long defies not just the odds, but belief. Imagine the grief and relief of this dad in Syria. After losing his wife and daughter, he's reunited with his son. Strangers found the toddler alone in hospital, posting this video on social media, hoping to find his parents, and they did. But so many aren't as lucky. This is Shevket, now being cared for in hospital by doctors and his aunt. Ogun's team found Shevket and his 14-year-old sister Halime trapped together in each other's arms. They worked relentlessly for 10 hours, freeing the younger sibling first. He explains how Halime adored her brother, her favourite person. When she learnt Shevket was okay, she told the rescuers how happy she was. They were her final words. Death is everywhere, from twin earthquakes that destroyed 12,000 buildings in Turkey alone, almost 400,000 now seeking refuge in hotels and tents, many more in their cars. Aid hubs like this, where people can get food or shelter, are now functioning right across the country, but the Turkish government's initial response has been labelled as criminal. The president especially under fire over his handling of the disaster and why it took so long for crews to reach the worst hit areas.
I know very well that words are meaningless to describe our pain.
In Adana, Turkey, Sarah Greenolch, 7 News.
2 primary school boys walking to the park have been struck by a car in a frightening accident in Melbourne's west. The horror scenario for any parent unfolded just 800 metres from home.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. 2 10-year-old boys struck while walking to the playground.
I was just sitting in the van and I just heard this loud thump. I could hear this young child screaming out help, like, Mum, on the road.
The boys were crossing McGrath Road at Wyndham Vale around 5 o'clock last night when they were struck. Grant Shade was nearby and came running.
One was bleeding in the head and you could see that clearly he had a broken leg or some sort of maybe fractured hip. And the other one was laying there shaking and I just kept talking to him and told him I'll be all right.
It's understood the pair misjudged the traffic, stepping straight into the path of this silver Toyota. The split-second decision almost cost them their lives. Witnesses say the driver immediately pulled over to assist but was too distressed to call 000. She explained what had happened to police, who say the investigation is ongoing. The boys are being treated at the Royal Children's Hospital. They are in a stable condition. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
A fierce blaze has destroyed a car in Bentley East, sending thick toxic smoke billowing into the sky. Fire crews extinguished the threat within 5 minutes of arriving at the Chesterville Road scene. No one was inside the vehicle and the blaze isn't being treated as suspicious.
Norfolk Island is tonight bracing for a direct hit from tropical cyclone Gabrielle. A red alert has been issued as the Category 2 storm bears down on the island. 2,000 residents have been ordered to seek shelter indoors as destructive winds gust at more than 100 kilometres an hour. The threat will continue throughout the night. It's rare for cyclones to come this close to the island.
For the second time in less than a week, the American military has shot down a suspicious high-altitude object.
President Joe Biden gave the order, but US authorities admit they don't know yet what it is or where it came from.
Shot down over the frozen Arctic Ocean, what US authorities describe only as the object. Off Prudhoe Bay in Alaska's far north, pilots in 2 F-22 fighters established it had no person and no payload on board.
President Biden ordered the military to down the object, and they did.
It was not like the infamous Chinese spy balloon.
It's going down. It was much, much smaller than the spy balloon that we took down last Saturday.
The object was about the size of a small car.
They're currently retrieving parts of the Chinese balloon to learn more about it. As for today's object,
we do not know who owns it, whether it's state-owned or corporate-owned or privately owned. We just don't know.
Criticised for waiting 8 days to shoot down the Chinese balloon, the president acted within 24 hours of detection this time.
Making sure that the message is clear, that any sovereign territory or airspace in this country, if there's a threat, if there's an incursion, there's going to be consequences.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
The federal government's removal of Chinese-made security cameras is attracting fresh backlash from Beijing. China's foreign ministry claims the move amounts to an abuse of state power, accusing the government of discriminating against Chinese products. An audit's revealed nearly 1,000 cameras were in use in Australian government offices, sparking fears they could pose a security risk.
The first electric ute has arrived in Australia as the federal government looks at new ways to boost demand for battery-powered vehicles. But there are fears those who can't afford to go electric could be left behind.
It looks like any other ute, but it's not. Chinese manufacturer LDV, the first to release an electric dual cab in Australia. Electricity transmission giant Transgrid trialling the $90,000 truck.
All about moving towards that cleaner future.
Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen taking the wheel.
Nice and quiet.
Transport is Australia's second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, making up almost 20%, most of it from road vehicles. Reducing that is critical to reaching the government's target of net zero by 2050. EVs are a big part of that, and demand is surging. 100,000 expected to be on the road this year. Keen to see those numbers continue to grow, the federal government's developing a national electric vehicle strategy.
With the right policy settings in place, we can have electric vehicles available to all.
But social welfare groups aren't so sure. Worried initiatives to boost demand for the expensive cars will make the social divide worse.
We need to be targeting our subsidies and help to people on lower incomes, not provide generous incentives for people on higher incomes.
One way to drive down price is to increase supply. And to do that, the federal government's been urged to introduce fuel efficiency standards, rules which would penalise higher emitting car makers.
Every developed country in the world, except for Australia and Russia, already have these rules in place,
forcing them to send more clean vehicles down under, eventually creating a cheaper second-hand market. Rob Scott, 7 News.
The woman who accused actor Craig McLachlan of indecent assault during a performance on the Rocky Horror Picture Show is now accusing the production company of discrimination. Christy Whelan-Brown has lodged a complaint with the Australian Human Rights Commission, claiming her former employer contravened the Sex Discrimination Act. Craig McLachlan was found not guilty of assaulting 4 women during the show's Melbourne run in 2014.
2 jockeys have been thrown off their rides in an ugly fall in Brisbane, colliding at Doomben Racecourse. One of the jockeys appeared to be stomped on as his horse regained its footing. An ambulance was called to the track before another was sent to Randwick for a second incident. That's where jockey Tom Marquand crashed into the turf, suffering concussion symptoms. He was taken to hospital.
One of the biggest sports events on the global calendar is now less than 2 days away, and after 56 years, the Super Bowl has evolved into much more than just a football game.
It's become a spectacle like no other. Fans spending millions on tickets, hotels and merchandise to watch their teams bid for glory. But the real money spinner comes off the field.
Yo, these are the bomb!
And they're air-popped, not fried.
Breaking into this year's programming.
So if you're going to get swarmed by an army of the dead, why not get swarmed in an EV?
I said we're waiting.
Super Bowl Sunday's other spectacle.
Rock stars, please.
You know what it takes to be a rock star?
Coveted 30-second advertising spots at an eye-watering $10 million a pop, pitching everything from rideshare apps.
Your milkshakes cost way less than before. This membership is better.
Hey, yo, you like milkshakes?
To fabric softener and hotel booking services. Big names paid big bucks.
I'm Bree.
Yeah, I'm John.
I know, but you're John who?
John Hamm.
To front campaigns aimed at the world's biggest audience, an estimated 120 million Americans and millions more around the world.
$10 million for a 30-second spot might seem like a lot, but advertisers know the returns will be even bigger. Nationwide spending this Super Bowl weekend on food, drinks and apparel is projected to top a whopping $24 billion.
Your total will be $784.49.
Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles buying up big, among them Philly fans with an Aussie on their mind.
You're a big Mailata fan. What is it you love about him?
He's so big and athletic and can really move.
My hope is for him to lead us to about a 14-point win.
In Phoenix, Arizona, David Woywood, 7 News.
Richmond legend Michael Roach has been discharged from hospital after suffering a heart attack. The 64-year-old needed a triple bypass and had a stent inserted in open heart surgery. He's now resting at home and is thanking the Tiger Army for their well wishes.
That is good news. The Aussies have a mountain to climb in India. Abby, Jelmer, it is not looking good.
Well, Beck, the chase is on after a frustrating day in the field with Scott Boland letting slip a crucial chance. Also, a week of mixed fortunes for a Magpies recruit struck down by an injury scare. An Aussie goes rogue after getting traded in the NBA. The party hole gets rocking at the Phoenix Open, and keeping with golf, guys, Tiger Woods is back. We've got that in golf.
OK, thanks, Abby. There's a warning tonight for swimmers and surfers on the state's southwest coast. Next on 7 News, the potentially harmful algae turning the water red.
Also, Melbourne comedy fans left fuming over a smartphone ban.
Remembering Ash Wednesday, 40 years on from the deadly bushfires.
Later, what's driving the rise of zero alcohol drinks.
And enjoy the last of this warmth before a cool wind change kicks in. I'll tell you when that will happen later on 7 News.
Victorians have been warned not to swim at Surf Coast beaches after an algal bloom turned the sea red. The rare phenomenon looks spectacular but can be toxic to people's skin.
Amid the blue and the teal of the Surf Coast, a shock of red, bright colour streaking across the sea between Wye River and Aries Inlet, a phenomenon caused by algae. In lay terms, it's known fittingly as sea sparkle, while to scientists,
we call it Noctiluca scintillans.
The phytoplankton bloom is unusual in midsummer, the likely cause winds, churning up cold water.
It brings up nutrients and feeds the little phytoplankton, the algae prey. And this thing you're watching is their predator. I know it's crazy. It's a plant single cell that eats other plants.
It's not a predator to humans, but it can be harmful, producing ammonia that irritates skin. Local lifesavers will monitor the outbreak and close beaches if the bloom comes too close.
We recommend that people don't swim in the red algae. If you do happen to swim in it, then rinse off in fresh water. And obviously, if you feel sick or not unwell, then seek medical advice.
It's best to view from a distance in the day and at night when it becomes bioluminescent.
That's, bazillions of these cells all being disturbed.
Kate Jones, 7 News.
The St John Ambulance Service has unveiled its largest state-of-the-art headquarters in Notting Hill. Complete with a call centre and training facilities, the building will be home to the organisation's volunteers.
They're difficult roles, whether it's training or whether you're out there on the front line for all the events, the way Victorians love to live their lives, you're there underpinning that.
Close to 1,000 local families enjoyed festivities to mark the building's opening.
City residents may be unhappier than their regional counterparts, according to a new study. Researchers have found long-term exposure to air pollution is linked to depression diagnoses after the age of 64. 3 pollutants were examined, including particle pollution from smoke and dust.
Tomorrow in the Dandenong Ranges, commemorations will begin to mark the 40th anniversary of the horrendous Ash Wednesday bushfires.
For so many, memories of the day when 180 fires claimed 47 lives in Victoria are still very raw.
Heroes 40 years ago, but Ash Wednesday memories still haunt them.
It never stops, Nick, it never stops.
The smells, yes, the feelings, you don't really lose that.
It was just like Hades. If there's ever a hell, it's it.
Now, Cockatoo Fire Museum, then a kindergarten. Inside, townspeople sheltering from the firestorm. On the roof, Tom Calvert and two mates protected them, extinguishing embers for hours.
The sky was all red and I could hardly even breathe. I could hear gas bottles exploding as the houses were being demolished. It was a very traumatic time.
Tom and his mates saved 300 people in that building.
I done it because it needed to be done.
That horrible night, Dot Griffin knocked on dozens of neighbours' doors.
And tell them that the fire was definitely coming and to get out. I don't think any of us realised how ferocious it was going to be. I was fortunate. I left, by 9 o'clock. The fire hit 9:05.
She returned to devastation.
I think I was gutted. I just looked at houses that weren't there anymore. All the trees were black. We had no green.
It was one of 180 Victorian fires that day. Major blazes too at Upper Beaconsfield, Mount Macedon, the Otway Ranges near Warrnambool. Statewide, 47 people killed, almost 3,000 buildings destroyed. Tomorrow, a memorial service at Cockatoo, healing even now.
And you start to realise you weren't the only one there and that you came out the other side.
I think it's a damn good idea because it makes people more fire aware of things and what can happen. And it happens so damn quick.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
A ban on phones and smartwatches has left fans of US comedian John Mulaney fuming. Queues stretched half a kilometre as fans waited to check in their devices before seeing the show at Margaret Court Arena. The delays causing some to miss the start.
This is ridiculous. Like, everyone's an adult. They can take responsibility for themselves. It's just ludicrous.
The rule caught many by surprise, with ticket holders only notified the day before the event.
Melbourne's coffee culture could be under threat from a shortage of baristas. Find out what's being done next on 7 News.
Also, the staggering amount of money betting companies are giving to all sides of politics.
Meet the 4 Aussie blokes heading overseas to run 80 marathons in 80 days.
And later, an important scam warning for generous Victorians donating to earthquake victims. The state's most dangerous beaches have been revealed. Gunnermatta on the Mornington Peninsula taking out the unenviable top spot. Lifesavers carried out 61 rescues at the beach this summer, eclipsing those performed at Victoria's second busiest beach in Portsea. Statewide, crews have conducted 551 rescues, while 31 people have died in our waterways since July last year.
Nurses and teachers are in demand right across the country, but in Victoria, we have our own unique job shortages. And if they're not filled, one of Melbourne's most famous offerings, our coffee culture, could be in trouble.
Our morning coffee could be in doubt because Victoria is running out of baristas.
I was told that we have a shortage of baristas in Melbourne. I find it hard to believe, and the only conclusion I can draw from that is obviously we've sent everyone to New South Wales to teach them how to make a decent cup of coffee.
New data shows the top job shortages unique to the state include bar attendants and baristas, advertising and marketing professionals, database and system administrators, as well as education education aides and social workers. The state government hopes to fill them by offering free TAFE positions, including to those who already have university degrees.
It means that we are creating a system, a TAFE that is more agile, more flexible, that can fit the needs of the changing labour market shortages.
Since 2019, almost 126,000 Victorians have taken up the offer.
I had a look at my future and I was like, I don't think I want to sit at a desk for the rest of my life. So did a bit of labouring with my uncle, and it kind of opened up, the world of trades.
It opens up opportunities for people that would never normally think that this was a possibility, and I think especially parents that might have been out of the workforce for a long time.
65% of total job growth over the next 5 years is projected to come from healthcare, science, education and training, as well as accommodation and food services.
If you have the skills that businesses are crying out for, then that's very good for business, it's very good for the workers with those skills, and it's critical for our economy.
And our morning latte. Chanel Vella, 7 News.
2 people, including a 6-year-old boy, have been killed when a driver rammed his car into a group of people at a bus stop in East Jerusalem. The driver was shot and killed at the scene by an off-duty detective. 5 others were injured in the attack, including a 5-year-old child who was given CPR. Tensions have been high in the city since a Palestinian shooting outside a synagogue last month that killed 7 people. A Delta Airlines flight made an emergency landing when flames shot from the plane's wing minutes after takeoff. The flight from Edinburgh to New York landed safely after being urgently diverted to Prestwick in Scotland. Delta says there was a mechanical issue with one of the aircraft's 2 engines.
A large Second World War bomb has exploded unexpectedly in the English resort town of Great Yarmouth. Explosive experts had been working to disarm the 250-kilogram device when it went off without warning. The bomb had been found in a river crossing earlier in the week. No one was injured in the blast.
4 Australian men are embarking on a marathon mission running from one end to the United States to the other.
Completing 80 marathons in as many days, the mates will lace up for a grand adventure and an even better cause.
From Olympians...
What a legend! What a champion!
...to long-distance heroes.
Yeah!
Australia has produced some pretty incredible runners. And then...
Mate, that is not a stretch.
There's these guys.
One of these.
Max, Sean, Rory and Jasper, 4 self-proclaimed battlers fresh out of university. Instead of tackling the workforce, they're taking on an epic adventure on foot.
None of us ran. Jasper did a bit of sprinting in high school, but that's about it, I think.
Starting next Saturday, the mates will run from the southernmost tip of the USA, passing through 13 states, finishing at the Canadian border. More than 3,000 Ks on foot.
Just one foot in front of the other, I guess.
It's the equivalent of 80 marathons in 80 days.
Perhaps what's more impressive than the run is the 80 motels that we'll be staying at every night, which are all 1-star, many bed bugs, and so that's kind of a side challenge which we're going through.
And while the idea might seem somewhat unoriginal, unlike Mr. Gump, who ran for no particular reason, these blokes have a clear prerogative.
The reason why we're doing this is for an issue very close to our hearts, for cancer.
Inspired by Rory's mum, Max's aunties, and all other cancer survivors and fighters.
My goal is to have no one go through what my mother went through.
Throughout this challenge, they'll have each other's backs.
And yes, we're going to be going through the highs and lows of everything, thicks and thins, but at the end of the day, the people that we're trying to raise money for and the cause we're committed to, there are people doing a lot worse than us.
Search Mates v States online to find out more. Tom Hartley, 7 News.
Good luck to them. More Australians than ever are partying with zero alcohol drinks. What's driving the take-up? Next on 7 News.
Also, generous Victorians at risk of being scammed, thinking they're donating to earthquake victims.
And a major milestone for City Square.
Melbourne City Square has been transformed again with the removal of an imposing noise-cancelling shed. The 90-metre structure was installed 3 years ago to soften the sound of excavation from the Metro Tunnel project. It took 4 months to dismantle and paves the way for work to begin on Town Hall Station's upper levels and entrance.
Thousands of Australians wanting to help the survivors of the twin earthquake disaster are being warned to watch out for fraudsters posing as legitimate charities.
The consumer watchdog has seen a sharp spike in scams, with online criminals exploiting those who want to donate to a good cause.
It's a disturbing roll call
16 years old cousins passed away, 2 missing.
Of Eddie Kochak's extended family in southeastern Turkey.
2 is in the coma, 4 or 5 injured. Dead with his wife and 3 years old daughter.
His uncle is one of 2 relatives in a coma, and no sound is coming from the collapsed home of his cousin and his wife.
This is 6 days ago, he spoke with his pregnant wife.
The Sydney barber feels helpless and knows donating is the only way he can help right now, but
just make sure 100% where you are helping.
The ACCC is recording a spike in earthquake scams, fraudsters preying on generosity and stealing from some of the most vulnerable people on the planet right now. Legitimate charities are verified.
Put it in your search engine, charity register, you can look up, you can see the name of the charity. They'll have, a lot more information if you want it.
For catastrophes that capture the world's attention, the larger the charity, the more likely your money will go where you want it to. Look for names such as Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders or World Vision.
Funds enable us to provide funds to those Red Cross and Red Crescent actors on the ground as fast as possible.
Angelique Opie, 7 News.
We have new details tonight on the donations gambling companies are making to Australia's politicians. Analysis by the Centre for Public Integrity has found a surge in donations since 2017. Overall, the gaming sector donated $8.7 million between 1998 and 2021. Tabcorp led the way with $3 million. Crown Resorts and Tattersalls both contributing over $1 million each. At the same time, hotel interests spent $15.2 million. Labor received $12.2 million of that money. The Coalition just $700,000 behind.
A drunk P-plater has caused a destructive chain reaction after barrelling his car into a parked vehicle and then into a family home. Police had tried to pull over the speeding driver in Adelaide just moments before impact.
It was like a tornado. Sound of a speeding car down the road. You could tell that it wasn't going to stop in time.
The 21-year-old man crawled out through a window before threatening police. Officers say he was almost 4 times over the legal limit. Australians looking to quench their thirst this summer are more likely than ever to reach for a non-alcoholic beverage. Low and zero alcohol drinks are becoming so popular, the first festival has been held in their honour.
A summer festival without the hangover. 30 major producers showcasing their booze-free beverages.
As Australians, we love a drink. And really what this festival is about is not about what's taken out, it's about what you get back.
Around 40% of Australians drink alcohol at least once a week. 5% drink daily, but the trend is changing.
I think there's been a generational shift that suggests people are more considered about their alcohol consumption, drinking less, attempting to drink better if they are drinking.
It's not saying that you have to miss out if you decide to not have a drink. You can still have an equally amazing experience and a delicious drink, but it just happens to not have alcohol.
And the taste for these products has never been greater. 31% of consumers now buying no alcohol beverages.
It's one of the fastest growing categories in the country.
Currently, non-alcoholic beer is the #1 seller in the zero market. But with the expansion of wine and spirit producers, no or low alcoholic spirits and pre-mixed zero cocktails are set to dominate the ever-growing category.
And there's been some high-profile players who've certainly brought us quite beautiful, tasty gin-like non-alcoholic spirits.
As for the taste,
some of them are really, really good.
Ellie Wicks, 7 News.
Abby Delmy is back with sport now. Abby, the truth has come out about a skipper stepping down.
Well, Beck, the Brownlow medalist only relinquished the captaincy this week, and now he's detailed why. That's next. Also, the Magpies' new skipper takes a giant leap while a new recruit gets a reality check. The Aussies in strife against India, the first test. And he's back. Details on Tiger's return to the tour. Plus, an Aussie signs off in style while some of the NBA's best take flight. Welcome back. Victorian Todd Murphy has become just the 6th Australian to take 7 or more wickets on Test debut. India eventually bowled out for 400 with a lead of 223 runs. Incredibly though, the Aussies are already in strife in the second innings, losing 4 wickets, including Khawaja, Labuschagne and Warner, all falling victim to spin.
Captain gets captain. Mind you, Rohit Sharma made 120. The tourists find
big shout for leg before. Murphy has got his 5th.
The 35th Australian with 5 wickets on debut. From Moama on the Murray River, Murphy's family made it to Nagpur for Todd's debut. What proud dad wouldn't compare his son to the king?
There's a lot of traits of Warnie, I think, in Todd.
Yeah, I shook my head when I seen that. I'm not sure if I'm anything similar to Warnie, but yeah, to have them here and being from country Victoria, there's been a lot of hours in the car. To be able to share the week with them, something that I think we're all going to remember forever.
Fremantle star Nat Fyfe has revealed his battle with depression days after standing down as captain. Natalie Anidi joins us live, and Nat, the dual Brownlow medalist, shed some light on his mental health.
Abby, Fyfe has detailed the demons that he's been fighting over the last 12 months as he struggled with a string of injuries which saw him hit rock bottom. The 31-year-old admits he's been suffering from depression and anxiety after playing just 7 games last season. Fyfe revealed he also lost 10 kilos after fighting a serious infection. It all culminated in the midfielder standing down as skipper this week.
What was happening on the outside, which was injuries, was just a small reflection of what was going on inside, in terms of I had a fair bit to deal with, had a good hard look at some of the ailments that we all face as humans in life, in terms of anxiety, depression. Internally, I was cooked and I was just fighting my way through it, and I just kept breaking down.
Now, days after signing with Collingwood, ruckman Oscar Steen went down clutching his leg at training at Victoria Park this morning. He looked to be in a lot of pain, but he did later return to the track. Skipper Darcy Moore took a step forward in his recovery from a bone infection, completing the session. Adelaide has made a shock captaincy call. Defender Jordan Dawson will take over from Rory Sloane in just his 2nd season at the Crows. And Abby, Richmond's Tom Lynch, an outside chance to play next weekend's intra-club, but the Tigers, they'll take a cautious approach with the star forward.
Thank you, Nat. The first Group 1 of 2023 produced a classic finish and a protest at Sandown. Gentleman Roy led from start to finish in the CF4 Stakes, but trainer Mick Price challenged after his runner Jacquinot was bumped down the straight and he was awarded victory.
You win some, you lose some, but anyway, he's a dual Group 1 winner. He was very game. And look, I'm going to say I believe it's the correct decision.
In Sydney, Animo returned for the first time since the Melbourne Cup Carnival, taking out the Apollo Stakes. Tiger Woods has announced he's ready to return for an event on the PGA Tour. It will be his first official start since the British Open 7 months ago, teeing up at the Genesis Invitational next week. At the Phoenix Open, Jason Day is in a tie for 6th at the halfway mark and still has hopes of returning to #1 in the world.
You have to have that belief in you to be able to try and at least have that as a goal. Try and get back to #1.
American Scotty Scheffler almost had the party hole rocking, close to holding out on the 16th. He holds a 2-shot lead at 10 under par. Young Drizzly star Ja Morant showed off his athletic abilities, taking flight in a win over Minnesota. The Heat, meanwhile, they notched a win with 0.7 seconds left on the clock.
The lob for Butler, he did it! Jimmy Butler put it in with 0.3 of a second left. Ball game's over.
Off court, Aussie Matisse Thybulle went undercover to thank Philly fans after he was traded to Portland, signing off on a mural. Former Saints forward Aaron Sipos is in line to return from an ankle injury for the Super Bowl. His Aussie teammate in Jordan Mailata isn't feeling the pressure at the Philadelphia Eagles. The former rugby league player keeping calm by singing.
Fergie and Stevie Wonder, if they had a child, probably sound like that. That's probably how good my voice is. I've immersed myself in the football universe, so I don't really see another option right now, and just going to keep riding the wave until my legs give out.
The Eagles take on the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl 57. That's live on 7 Monday morning. He seems like a very relaxed character.
60 kilograms. He's a big fella too.
Yeah, he is, isn't he?
Thanks, Abs.
He does.
It's been a beautiful Saturday, but Sonia Marinelli, there's a change moving in.
Yeah, Mike, I hope you're enjoying the last of this warmth before a cool wind change does kick in tonight. I'll have all of the details up next.
Stream 7 News anywhere, anytime, live and on demand on 7plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.
Hello again. Today was all round perfect summer weather under warm, slightly humid winds, allowing the temperature to rise. That is until a sea breeze kicked in and stopped the city from reaching its full potential. And now we have a proper wind change closing in. That's going to amp up the wind chill, at least over the next couple of days. So we started on 16 degrees. We did hit a high of 26, but early, because then that sea breeze kicked in and cooled us right down, including bayside suburbs like Moorabbin and Frankston, but that didn't stop. The sea breeze didn't really get into the outer suburbs, so the temperature did reach closer to the 30s as forecast. Even Geelong made it to 29 degrees. We have dropped back to 24 in the city, mid-20s in the suburbs as well, although western suburbs out to Geelong down to 22, but it's certainly a lovely Saturday evening for all of us. Of course, the weather does like to keep us on our toes here in Melbourne. Around midnight, the winds turn cold and the showers start to develop, mainly over the eastern suburbs and around the Dandenongs as well. Just a small chance here in the city itself as we drop down to a low of 17. The cold change is moving in from South Australia. You can already see it's pushing in the cloud and some light showers. Today we were on the warm side, but tomorrow we're on the cooler side, particularly down across southern Victoria. So that low moves into New South Wales tonight. Cool winds flowing in behind it, but soon high pressure does take control as it moves in from the west. As the high moves, it's going to drag heat that right now is pooling over central Australia and send it right down across Victoria. And that is going to hit Melbourne from the middle of next week. We are looking at heat wave conditions Thursday and Friday as the temperature soars into the mid-30s. And it's going to be a dry one too. That high is really blocking any rain-bearing systems from pushing up and over land. To the forecast now, it is warm and dry to end the week in Brisbane, windy for those in Sydney, mild and settled if you're in Adelaide. But back home, temperatures come down across the state tomorrow once those southerly winds do take hold overnight. Still warm and sunny across northern Victoria, but it's going to be much cooler across the south and mostly cloudy, and there'll be some isolated showers as well. Closer in, the weather looking very different to today. Any suburbs could get showers tomorrow, but they're most likely going to be focused around the Dandenongs and the eastern suburbs. The wind chill, the main feature, as southwesterlies gust between 25 and 35 k's an hour. So we're going to shave quite a few degrees off these maximums for the feels-like temperature. So in the city, it is just 19 degrees tomorrow, but it will feel more like 13 out in the wind chill. Showers are possible, but unlikely in the city itself. On Monday, again, just 19 degrees under cloud, but then we're back on a warming trend. Tuesday, 22 degrees, partly cloudy. Wednesday jumps to 29 under mostly sunny skies. Full sunshine on Thursday and Friday, 34. Then 36 degrees and 33 on Sunday. So it was warm today. It is cool tomorrow, just 19 degrees, but the heat wave conditions are back from the middle of next week. Beck, Mike, that is typical summer weather here in Melbourne, isn't it?
You're right, it is. Thanks, Son. And that's 7 News for this Saturday. We'll have updates throughout the evening.
For now, from the 7 News team, take care. Good night.